Welcome everyone to this Monday's water cooler chat. Today we're going to be talking about all things Livepeer, and we have a special guest joining us today. Also at 3:45, we have Eric Tang, a CEO or not CEO, co-founder of Livepeer. We're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A session with him on the future of video tech. That was a topic I figured I'd pick because Eric in the past has talked a lot about video tech, and I figured it would be a good subject for him to come in and do some Q&A. And not to mention, I'm just kind of curious about that kind of topic as well. So yeah, as we go through today, we'll be doing the regular introductions at the beginning and regular conversation, and then at 3:45 we'll have some questions for Eric. So if you could drum up a question for Eric, that would be really, really wonderful. So anything about the future of video tech, right? So whether it's about apps, hardware, or even just general questions for Eric in general. I have one that's not so much about video tech, but about Web3. So if you have a question for him, please go ahead and think of it right now and write it down, and we'll be able to go through those a little bit later, which would be really, really wonderful. So what I'll do is, if you are in the audience, please go ahead and raise your hand. I can invite you up to stage. All the green hands are me inviting these people up to speak, and the black hands are the ones of people asking to be invited up. So just go ahead and throw up your hand if you want to come join in on the conversation. It's not intimidating. We're just going to have a chat and talk about all things Livepeer. If you have any questions or just want to introduce yourself, come up to the stage. And yeah, with that being said, I'll start with introductions and then I'll go through everyone. And like I said, if you have a question, if you have a topic for this week's chat, please say that. But also if you have a question for Eric, so there'll be two things for you to think of if you can real quick. So okay, we'll get started. I am Titan. I run the NightNode Orchestrator, which is a public pool. Been operating since May of 2021. And today's topic is all about, for me, is going to be about the content competition. So the content competition is an idea I came up with where we can encourage community members to make a video brochure, medium of some kind, doesn't matter if it's audio, video, or written, about guiding people, specifically probably retail investors, to stake on layer 2. Layer 2 is a kind of a new item, and people are having trouble staking sometimes. And so rather than just making another video myself, there seems to be a lot of different roadblocks people are running into. And so I took the idea from a couple other protocols of running a content competition where we can reward people inside or outside of the community for producing this content, right? So I don't know if anyone read it, gone through it. I'll post it again here in the event chat, the link to the idea, the draft of the competition. So this isn't official. This isn't finished. I'm actually looking for feedback on the idea in general, because I don't know if this is actually a good idea. So from the community, I would love to know whether this is actually a good idea, where the pitfalls are, and who would be interested in partaking. So the content competition. And the question I have for Eric is, what is his opinion on ASIC chips for transcoding? So NetInt has some, and that kind of thing. So ASIC chips is my question. With that being said, we'll move on to the rest of introductions here. Let's start with Ftkuhsman. Would you like to introduce yourself, a topic, and a question?
Yeah, hey guys, Joey here with Ftkuhsman. No specific topic or question today. Looking forward to listening, and I'll speak up if I think I can add some value.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Papa Bear, would you like to introduce yourself, a topic, and a question?
Sure. Papa Bear from Solar Farm. I sorry. I was kind of curious if anyone's played around with price per pixel to see if that's actually working as far as does that change the number of tickets you're actually receiving? I switched mine for a minute this morning, and then I also while I was doing it, I took the default. I kind of reset my Orchestrator some default settings and changed my reward cut. So I just kind of freaked out and switched everything back, and I didn't really like let it go long enough to look into. But the reason I bring it up is you know, I saw Binance won a ticket, and they have their pixel price set at, I think it's like one. So I was just wondering, did they get extremely lucky, or is that feature currently not working properly? Just wondering if anyone's played around with that. And yeah, that was my topic. As far as questions, for Eric, I mean, I'm obviously just curious in general about what if there's new features that are being planned for Livepeer, ways to use GPUs, whether it's rendering 3D or doing AI type stuff, or just general idea or questions about that. And I posted a link in the event chat about sorry, rambling on here, about a video that I saw that has some interesting AI video processing that uses NVIDIA graphics cards. And I thought it could be something that would be cool to add to Livepeer, maybe from like an indexing video standpoint, because it's really good at it analyzes the video, and it can tell you like, oh, there's a, not only, I mean, like there's a surfer on a, you know, on a black and white surfboard wearing a yellow shirt. And it was just kind of cool. And I thought it might be an interesting feature to add, or value add for indexing video and letting people be able to search into video and see other than based on just the keywords and doing, you know, looking through the audio, but actually like being able to analyze the video and going, oh, you know what, I want to see, like, let's just using that example of the surfer. I want to see that, and I want to see like that part, and it can just kind of go right to that. I just thought it would be kind of a cool thing to add on. So I posted that link there. It's like a 2-minute little clip, and yeah, that's what I got for today.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us, Papa Bear. I've got a little bit of feedback on the price per pixel thing, so we'll dive into that in a little bit, at least from my experience. Great. Thank you for joining us. Ed, Garden State Node, you want to introduce yourself, topic, and a question for Eric?
Sure, yeah. Hey, my name's Ed. I run Garden State Node. No specific topic, but I do agree that I was really surprised in Discord how many people are even unfamiliar with like layer 2s and Arbitrum. So, you know, more information about that should definitely help everyone out. Other than that, I'm on pretty spotty internet right now, so if my voice cuts out, sorry. But yeah, just happy to listen in.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. I just want to do a quick mic check. How is my microphone doing?
Good for me.
Sounds good over here.
You sound absolutely amazing, Titan. Has not.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Yeah, just sometimes, yeah, the mic is in and out, or sometimes I connect to the wrong mic. So appreciate that. Thank you, Ed, for joining us.
Good, deep, clear, booming voice.
Well, right back at you, Chris. I love it. Eliteproxy, would you like to introduce yourself on a topic and a question for Eric?
Hey, this is John with Elite Encoder. I don't think I have a question today. Things have been going well with my node. I got a delegator recently, finally, so that's a really exciting moment. I've been playing around with price per pixel too. Just yesterday, I noticed a lot of people seem to have their set a little bit lower than the $11.99 that we had on L1. I wasn't sure if there was any advantage. I brought mine down a little bit. I've noticed stream volume like really or seemingly really low. I get a lot of really short streams. A little spike comes in. It seems like they're testing speed. Been curious to see how, you know, a lot of them are the high renditions, and trying to figure out, you know, I have some really nice GPUs, but, you know, it seems they don't do so well on maybe the 480s or whatever. So it would be neat if there was a way to have your really heavy renditions come to a different GPU or something like that. There's some ideas that I had, but no other questions.
Separate resolutions per card? Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Interesting.
Something
had
like that would
same
be
thought,
interesting.
and I actually made an issue about it at one point, so I will look that up and post it, and you can comment on that and see if we
Yeah.
can get some attention drawn to it. Because yeah, I think that it would be beneficial to be able to get stuff going to the best card for the job. But I'll when we talk about that, I can add more to that.
Very good. Okay, great. That's amazing. Almost, even with the support of different video codecs for different cards, I wonder if a question to Eric would be like, how does the future of different codecs work for different cards, and how does that get separated, right?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I was actually thinking about that this morning. Yeah, if I have a card that doesn't support VP8, but I also have a card that does in the same orchestrator, does it figure that out and deal with it, or is it just kind of like, oh, you know what? We kind of randomly assigned the video to a card in your machine, and since both of them don't support it, you're cut out of those videos. So yeah, I'd be curious to know more about how that works.
Cool. All right. I will definitely. I've kind of put that on the list of general questions for Eric. I got my own list of 4 or 5 questions. So
Cool.
there we go. Cool. Okay, let's continue on here. We have Drake. Drake, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic, and maybe a question for Eric?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Drake. I'm coming to you on behalf of the Livepeer Inc. team, where I am specifically underneath Meredith doing product marketing. This will be my second water cooler. I'm a recent member to join, but looking forward to continuing to learn from all of you. Being product marketing is what I'm focused on. I'm joining these water coolers in hopes to really understand not only what feedback I can get from orchestrators involved, but also work on the overarching goal of how to better communicate to orchestrators, as well as what content we need to generate going forward to help the ecosystem and community as a whole. So Titan, thanks for getting the competition started for content. I think that's going to be a great start and really get the wheels turning in the right direction.
Cool.
No specific question, but I will chime in when needed, and I'll put this out there for any orchestrators that want to go ahead and send me a friend request if we haven't connected already. Looking to form a relationship with all of you that are active here on the Discord, and that way we can all be aligned going forward. So thanks.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate you coming, and I would love your feedback on the content competition. Again, I like it's we'll dive into it shortly here, but it's still in idea mode, so what you see there is just thoughts on a screen and not totally official yet. But I'll go further into my thinking, so I'd love your feedback on that. So thank you very much for joining us, Drake, and welcome back. Next, we have Mist. Mist, would you like to introduce yourself, a topic, and maybe a question for our co-founder, Eric?
Sure. Hello. This is my first time here. I just finished setuping my orchestrator yesterday on layer 2. So I'm, let's say that noob is more than an appreciation for the level that I'm right now. And thank you very much for your tutorials, NightNode. So I used them to be able to finish the setup yesterday. And right now I'm very curious, is there a way in which I can check if my setup fully works? Because I don't know if I should stake more LPT, or I should wait to see that jobs are being sent to my machine. Hopefully I made myself understood.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you would like to check to see if your orchestrator fully works, and then from there decide if you want to purchase more LPT or move from there. Is that correct?
Yeah, or if there are other ways in which I can get more requests. Or
absolutely, yeah, growing your node. That's a great topic. Yeah. So yeah, we'll jump into that. We'll probably jump into that a bit later. So if you want to make sure you stick around to the end for that, we'll definitely get around to that. A lot of people have great ideas for growing their node, and we're just excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining, and welcome to the community.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. And I don't know how to say your full name. I just said Mist. I abbreviated.
So in English, my name is John. So let's go with John.
Sure. There we go. I will probably just keep calling you Mist, to be honest, because it's the first thing I see. So apologies if
Okay.
because I just read the names in front of me. Otherwise, I just forget. But yes, thank you so much for joining us. We also have Chris joining us. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself, a topic, and maybe a question for Eric? Chris, are you with us? Oh, your microphone might not be... Nope, your microphone's... Oh, he's gone. He'll probably be back in a sec. Okay, if you are in the audience and you would like to come up and talk, just raise your hand and I'll invite you up to speak. And, it's pretty laid back. We talk about all things Livepeer, and any questions or topics you'd like to cover, we can cover them today. There's Chris. I'll invite him back up. And let's see what... we got some magic here. Chris, are you with us? Chris?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Yes. I don't know what's going on with my sound setup. Okay, you can hear me now. That's good. I have two questions. I have a topic and a question, as requested. Thank you, Titan. So the topic is all about the merge. So I don't know if you guys are following this stuff that's happening with Ethereum switching from proof of work to proof of stake. But this is, it's been long promised, and a lot of people have honestly started to believe that it was never going to happen. But now it's starting to get a little bit of momentum, and it's looking likely that sometime in the next few months, to be confirmed, Ethereum is going to be switching off proof of work and switching to proof of stake. And I guess my topic is just about where might there be opportunities for the Livepeer ecosystem in this kind of discontinuity of an event in the Ethereum ecosystem. My question for Eric, so the topic I think is about the future of video technology. I'm a firm believer that the Livepeer ecosystem can be a big part of the future of video technology, how we share video on the internet. But I don't think it can be done without widespread collaboration, with community and with people around the world. So I guess my question is about how are we in Livepeer going to cultivate an environment where developers from all over the world feel like contributing and have channels to contribute to this ecosystem, so that we can kind of really change the world for the better. I don't know if I'm rambled too much, but I expect that Titan will kind of summarize the questions and kind of give them to Eric. But that's all from me for now. But again, it's really nice to be here. I haven't been on this for a few weeks. It's really nice to see some new faces and some existing ones as well.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Thank you very much, Chris, for joining us again. Yeah, so the merge from ETH2 proof of work to proof of stake. I would like to hear your opinion on that, Chris, because I think that's an interesting topic, and I'm very excited to see how that whole transition happens. And then your question about cultivating a developers community within Livepeer. I think that's a great question for Eric, so we'll definitely get to that. And again, Chris, thanks for joining us. And I think I've covered everyone. Oh, we got NightNode. NightNode, would you like to introduce yourself, a topic, and a question for Eric?
Sure. Just a heads up. I'm in a car, so if my audio is bad, sorry. My name's Ryan. I run NightNode. The topic or question that I kind of want to, I'm interested in the ASICs for video transcoding, so that was kind of an interest that I wanted to hear more about to see if we could get support for that kind of stuff. Seeing as especially I think we found the price of them was actually kind of low, so that's cool. The other thing that I wanted to know a little bit more, and I've been kind of posting about this a little bit, but it's weird, is so far with the probabilistic micropayments, I'm finding, and I don't know if it's an issue with me or if it's an issue with Livepeer or if I'm just being impatient, but it's like I've transcoded 185,000. I have 185,000 tickets. I've transcoded like 120,000 minutes, which is the equivalent of like almost 1,900 hours of video. And so far, there's been 0 payments on that. And it's like when you compare that to the $5, the article that Livepeer put out with like traditional transcoding, it's $5 per hour of video. It's the equivalent of almost like $10,000 in payments that you would have received if you were in a traditional system. So it's like where you're seeing, I've seen some some orchestrators who have like a score of like less than 2, and they're getting tickets, and then you have like people who are like pushing the top of the leaderboard and getting like nothing for now it's been a month or so. It's just kind of slightly aggravating, and it's, I don't understand if it's an issue on my side or if I'm just having really shitty luck. But between me and Authority Null, who are partnered together on some of our nodes, we both have about the equivalent of like probably 275,000 minutes transcoded, and the equivalent of like 400,000 tickets that we received, and both of us together have no winning tickets, which actually probably at this point puts somewhere between 10 and 15 tickets behind what you would expect to win based on like probabilistic micropayment. So it's I'm just kind of curious as to, like, I don't know. I don't even know what to really ask about this, but it's just kind of more like I don't know if I'm doing anything wrong at this point. Like and I feel like it's been a constant question of me of like, am I doing something wrong, or is this just how it is? So I'd be curious to see if anybody has some insight into the issue I'm currently having.
Yeah, that is really either unfortunate that you haven't gotten paid, or unfortunate that your configuration is set up wrong, because you definitely should be getting some at that point. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's
like, especially now that we're giving tickets out for like every $100 site. It's not like I'm waiting on like a the original 0.18 Ethereum, where that makes sense. It might be like very far out in the future, but now it's getting to the point where it's like my expected daily Ethereum is like 0.0, which is somewhere around like $60 a day. So based on the $100 payment that you're getting out of there, you'd almost expect it to be every 2 days or so based on that amount that's currently being paid out. So
yeah, I have a couple of queries we can say like from previous support I've gotten. There's a couple queries we can do into your databases to see to make sure that your node is like active locally and that everything is you're receiving and processing the tickets correctly. So maybe we can run some of those queries just to see if things are right. I might be able to help you out a little bit, not very much though. But yeah, because
I'll when I get home.
Cool. Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate those questions, because not getting paid is a big problem if you deserve to get paid. So the luck factor seems would be, I don't know. I don't know. You should be getting much more tickets.
I think that one might be related to a Redeemer node setup. So I was talking with, I think there's a couple guys in the NightNode, but yeah.
I have 5 nodes, and 3 of them are off Redeemer, 2 of them are on Redeemer. So I mean, like I'd almost expect, and some of the ones that are off Redeemer are the ones that are usually the more higher performing ones that have more higher stream counts. So like those are running just with the wallet on there, and they have access to do redeeming and stuff. I don't know if there's some kind of issue where if you're doing like split where some are on Redeemer, some aren't. I can't imagine it would be, but so it's not like I have it where it's like I could have the individual nodes do some of the ticket redemptions if it comes to them, and then I have some of them that I want trustless, and then those are doing they're routing through the Redeemer. So
yeah, that's interesting. I have all 6 of my nodes on a Redeemer, so and they seem to be operating fine. So it'll be interesting to compare some nodes maybe. Cool. All right. Well, let's continue on, and I appreciate everyone for their topics and their questions, and let's just jump right into it. I'm going to jump right into, firstly, why don't we start off with, because the content competition is this idea that I'd like to talk about. Maybe I don't know if I want to talk about it first and hijack the place, or if I just want to talk about it second. But why don't we start with some Orchestrator talk? The competition I'm going to save for after we talk about Eric, because in itself it's its own kind of conversation that I'd like to talk about. So let's start off with Papa Bear, your price per pixel question. Do you want to just elaborate on that and ask your question?
I was just wondering if anyone's played around with it and done any has anyone like played with it and seen like, does it, like, if you are at 1200, like, basically 1200 per pixel versus 1000, are you getting 20% more tickets? I'm just curious to know if it's working, because I know that in the past there's been certain things that have not worked as they're supposed to, and it really kind of just came up when I saw that Binance got that ticket with, they're set at 1. So I was figuring, how many minutes did they do? And then when you look at their performance score, I'm like, how could they even do that many minutes? I think there is luck involved, so that's possible too. But
I'll give some input, Papa Bear.
Awesome.
I haven't played so much in any kind of scientific way with price per pixel on mainnet, but some of you might have seen the guide I wrote, the quick start guide for like running a full broadcaster orchestrator transcoder network on a test net, so on Rinkeby. And like that's where you can really very freely play with price per pixel and pay yourself lots of testnet ETH and cash in lots of winning tickets and like really exercise your RPC connection to Arbitrum testnet. And what I find there is that I put the price per pixel up to 1 million way or 10 million way or something crazy like this, and I haven't done any scientific testing of like, am I getting more tickets? Am I getting, like mapping them and measuring them? But what's definitely very clear is that at some level, price per pixel definitely does work. Like if you multiply your price per pixel by 10 and you start sending the same source content, then you will get like a shit ton of tickets. Like your CPU will start getting overloaded with having so many tickets to check and redeem, and so if you want to convince yourself whether price per pixel metric actually works, I'd recommend going through that thing about setting up your own broadcaster on a testnet and your own orchestrator transcoder on a testnet, and just start exercising. You don't even need GPUs to do this. You can kind of overload your CPU with just one stream. In fact, it's not even overloading, but you can send one stream in and get it transcoded into 720p, 576p, 360p, 240p, 144p. Just like max out the payments and just play with the price per pixel, put it up, put it down, and see the number of tickets you're receiving go up a lot, and the number of winning tickets that you receive going up a lot. But to your query about whether price per pixel is actually makes a difference, I'm quite convinced that it does. How Binance and their node with one way per pixel managed to get a ticket, that I don't know, but that would be my kind of input.
Thank you. I can. I have an extra GPU sitting around, so I can really max that thing out and give it a good run.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need to max out a GPU. Like I run this on my laptop with CPU, and I inject one 1080p stream in, and I get 4 or 5 different renditions coming out. But I put my price per pixel in way at something like 10 million way, or maybe I even start measuring it in Gwei, and like the amount of payments that start coming through becomes like in the console logs, like it's only tickets, like there's a little bit of information about about what streams are being transcoded and how long it's taking to download the streams. But 90% of the console feed that stood out is about receive this ticket, this was the expected value, this is the face value, this is all this stuff. And you even watch on kind of RBScan, seeing all the winning tickets getting cashed in. So that for me is the most sensible place to kind of play with price per pixel. And like I say, it definitely doesn't need GPU. You can just do it with a laptop.
Yeah, no,
transcoding one screen.
And that's a good point too, because then you can actually control the environment. Whereas like when I tried to just, I mean, again, I just put it on for like a minute and then I realized I screwed something else up. But I was like, but yeah, I'm getting different streams and stuff like that. So like, it's really hard to tell what's going on, you know, but yeah, so
Right,
on test
right.
out where you can actually control the, like,
Right.
do these renditions and see like, what am I getting per, you know, basically even
Right.
however I want to do it. But yes, you much more control over it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I've followed your guide before, so it's very good. And I know I can get it up and running. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, from my experience, which is anecdotal, I had set when I first moved to Arbitrum, I had mine set to 995, so just under 1,000. And then after about a week, I won a few tickets, and then I set it back up to about 1145. So it's roughly a 20% increase in price. And I don't know, I definitely could say that I've gotten more tickets with roughly the same amount of transcoding work. So maybe just off of feel, you could say that a 20% increase in tickets did happen. But yeah, I do agree. To have one way per pixel that Binance does, and they want a ticket, is pretty bizarre.
I mean, that is part of the probabilistic micropayment thing. I mean, it is, you know, that shows that, you know, it is possible.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even need to know an exact number, but hearing just from the two of you guys that you're seeing a difference is probably enough for me to know that it is working the way it's supposed to. So, I mean, I'll still play with it, but yeah, no, I appreciate you guys both chiming in on that.
Another way to test this is to, if you want to do mainnet, because you know NightNode's mainnet first, right? You could easily just run one of your nodes at less price per pixel and the other one at more price per pixel, and just see how many tickets you get per node. Or what you can even do, if you want to get real fancy, is you can do geolocating DNS, and what you do is you do a weighted rule and you split it up between two nodes on the exact same machine. So you can run one node under one port, one node under another port. You can run each at different amounts of weight per pixel, like say 100 and 1000, and you have a 50-50 split between them. And so statistically, they should be getting exactly 1/10 the tickets as the other one, right? So it depends how crazy you want to get.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna play with it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I don't need exact numbers. I just wanted to make sure it was working. That was all.
Based on my anecdotal,
because I'm thinking about Ticket EV, how like when I played with that, it made no difference at all. It just basically just changed the probability, and I was like, okay. So I was just wondering kind of if anyone had confirmed with price per pixels making a difference, but it sounds like it is. And I did go to actually play with it. I'm cool playing with it on mainnet. I mean, especially if you let it go for an hour or two, it's not a big deal. But I just hit all the defaults and just quickly went through and I changed all my my reward cuts and everything. So I was like, oh damn, and I just switched it back because I just didn't want to deal with it at that point. But I'll be more careful next time. I'll probably just play with it on mainnet. But yeah, it sounds like it's working. So yes.
Just to your point about Ticket EV, I think if you can change Ticket EV, and the only thing that will do is change the probability, but also some broadcasters may set their, I think, max ticket EV. So you can end up doing yourself out of some business from some broadcasters, but that would involve us being in a multi-broadcaster world. But yeah, I don't know.
So
why
I
made
guess
that point.
maybe I mean, what's the point of it then? Like, if it's just changing the probability balance out, like, what would be the advantage or disadvantage of changing that?
Might be a good question for Eric, and if he knows about this stuff. But Chris, do you know that about the ticket EV flag?
I'm thinking. I can't believe that it would have been something that was made without a reason, like Yonden's design would have had a reason for it. I'm trying to think about why I'm rusty on probabilistic micropayments.
And also, I think part of it also came up because it was turned. I think it was turned off or at least limited at one point when I believe it was you that came across that there was an issue with it. Or was spitting out too many tickets if you changed it, or you're winning more tickets. This is going back several months.
There was some metric that because I had chosen to just play with it a little bit on mainnet, for some reason I was getting more tickets than more tickets for the same amount of money, and so maybe I don't know.
All right, something to look into. All right, I'll make a note.
Cool. Okay, we can definitely come back around to this topic if it's interesting. But yeah, the price per pixel, I think it's working from my experience. But I would like to hear more feedback if anyone wants to do further testing on it. We'll move on to another topic just before Eric joins us. He's supposed to be joining us in about 5-10 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll actually move over to John's question. John is the new orchestrator with us. And John had a question about, I guess, how to check if his orchestrator is fully working and strategies for growing his node. John, do you want to just elaborate on your question there and ask it?
I think you resumed it well enough. I can add additional questions if based on what I'm not understanding from your answers.
Sure. So does anyone have any feedback for John on how to check if his node is fully running? This might also tie into NightNode's question a little bit. But does anyone have any feedback on that?
I mean,
I just checking the performance. Just one question: whether you've had any streams at all, John? Like, has anything come in the logs or on the monitoring? Okay, if you've had 0 streams, then I'd be worried. But if you've had non-zero, then it maybe is just a case of kind of building up your reputation.
A good question. Can you tell me how the message should look like in the logs?
So in the logs, you'll see something about how you your node has received some work, some video content. It might be talking about like the resolution of the video content. Maybe it receives something in 1080p, and maybe you're serving that.
I haven't received. Yet.
Definitely So you have not received?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have a link to check the performance scores of your machine to see if you're getting the test streams.
Why don't you share your orchestrator node address, and then we can take a quick look at it as a community here.
Sure, that would be great.
In the event
where
chat.
can I post the event chat? Okay.
It is, so just above, 2 channels above this, in the event chat there.
And when you start your orchestrator, are you seeing that handshake received output?
Receive a ping request.
Great. So it sounds like your ports are open properly and everything, if that's indicating that way.
Based on interpreters at stream test results, he has not successfully transcoded a stream yet.
Yeah, I'm looking at that too.
So, one issue might be that reward with hint, transcoder, bond with hint, prove, service URI. Okay. Well, it seems like you're on the right path because you have registered it on Arbitrum, which is a good start. Is he on the Livepeer Explorer?
Yes. I can give you the link as well.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't you do that? What I see here is your orchestrator is likely active.
You can take his service URI and go to like a port checker and then put in whatever port he has registered, see if that's open. If it's not open right now, he wouldn't be receiving anything. And when it's active, when Livepeer is active behind it, it will show as open. So that could be an indicator of whether or not he has his ports open and running proper, or if it's even running at all. Another thing too is if you're running on Linux and you didn't turn it into a service and you're SSHing into it, I've noticed that if you were to just run it as like a command line execution and then you close it out, like you close out your SSH session or times out or whatever, that will stop the process from running unless you do a service. That would continue.
I'm running it on Windows.
You are? All right.
I'm running it on Windows. Mostly I followed what NightNode described in tutorials. I have an error. I can post it in event chat if you can have a look on it. I try to look through the Discord channel to see if someone else encountered this.
8935. I'm just checking your port right now. And your port is open and it is running. So I suspect what I would do, John, is in your launch script, I would add -v4. So update your vibrosity to 4. And that will show you all your streams that you are doing as well as any errors. In fact, I would do -v6. So it'll look like this. Add that to your launch script, and it'll give you all the details of every stream it gets, any missed connection it gets, and I would add that, and then you'll be able to read more. So I would start with that, and then see if you get any streams or anything. But yeah, what it seems as though you're not transcoding anything.
Okay.
How long have you been active?
Let's say 30 hours.
Okay. Yeah, your port is open, your node is running, but
is your firewall? Did you open the firewall on Windows, the Windows firewall?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Can you tell me if the messages that I posted on event chat have anything to do with my problem?
Let's see. Block watcher error. No, that's fine. Error getting gas price. An established connection was aborted by your host machine. Are you using Infera or Alchemy?
Alchemy.
Alchemy. Arb mainnet.
Oh, mainnet. There's the problem. It should be. Oh no, Arb mainnet. Sorry, my bad.
Arb mainnet. Yeah, Arbitrum mainnet. Yeah, that should be right. Yeah, that could be a problem actually, is you getting gas prices and stuff. So I would why don't we have the team, the Livepeer team, the Livepeer community, all jump in and help you over the next couple hours here, or maybe over the next day or two, in chat, and we can all do a deep dive into getting your node up and running, because I'm sure we can
that
get
will be awesome.
I'm sure we can get.
I can also write a tutorial afterwards for people who are trying to set up orchestrators, because I had to combine multiple things to get so far. So I can say that it's not like straightforward to do it.
Yeah, it's been a while. My tutorial is now outdated because it was on Ethereum mainnet. So, but what we'll do is, because we're just doing the water cooler, why don't we? And there's so many things we can do to troubleshoot your node. Why don't we, as a community, we can continue
Do
this
it later.
Yeah, we can continue this in chat, and we'll get you going. So, John, I appreciate you being here.
One last thing on that. If you could also share your startup script, but just take out any like passwords or anything like that, so we can look at that. That'll help
So
us,
the launch node.
Yeah, exactly. But just take out like
Sure.
any passwords or anything, any personal information.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Perfect. And then we'll take a look at that and get you going afterwards.
Wonderful. I see we have Eric joining us. Eric, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. What we'll do now is we'll switch over into the second part of this this meeting, where we'll do a Q&A with Eric, where we'll talk about the topic I came up with, which was the future of video tech. And I know Eric has talked about a couple of these kind of topics on other streams that I've watched, so I figured it would be a good topic for us to jump into and ask Eric. So Eric, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe just introduce yourself, who you are and how you got into Livepeer, and then we got a list of questions for you that we can jump into.
Great. Okay, thanks for having me here. I'm Eric. I'm the co-founder and CTO at Livepeer. We've been working on Livepeer for about the past 5 years, but before this, I've been a computer science kind of person and programmer for a long time. I started two kind of software companies before this, and this is kind of actually both with Doug. So this is kind of the third project that we've worked on together. The way I got into Livepeer and got into this kind of decentralized technology space is like back in 2016, Doug and I were kind of figuring out, like just looking around and seeing what are the interesting things that are happening in technology, and this was back when Ethereum was kind of deploying the AlphaNet, and when we just got really excited about this idea of kind of being able to program something on a decentralized platform that no one can take it down, right? We've worked on kind of projects before that used like other big platforms APIs and whether it's Facebook or Google or Twitter, and have been subjected to kind of the constantly changing policies of those APIs and the kind of the adverse incentives that the platform kind of inherently has with the developer community on those platforms, that we thought just this new decentralized technology space was really interesting. So we started hacking around the space, working on some just open source projects here and there, and over about 6 months of time, worked on probably 4 or 5 different iterations of different ideas. And at that time, we as we gained more belief into this Web3 space, we started thinking longer term about kind of if decentralized technology was going to be kind of this predominant form of technology that we'll all use in the future, like what are some of the missing components? What are some of the missing layers in this technology stack, right? Like back in the day, we already had Filecoin that was kind of working on this decentralized storage. We had Ethereum, right, for smart contracts. We had Bitcoin for kind of value transfer and things like that. But having worked on video streaming technology prior to this, we knew just how expensive and difficult and complex it is to create a video streaming application, where you really need this streaming layer, infrastructure layer to support a scaled video streaming application. And so with that kind of combined with this belief that decentralized technology would eventually become kind of the main design paradigm and for all technology on the internet, we set off to build Livepeer, and 5 years later, here we are.
Very cool. Yeah, thank you so much for telling that story. I originally heard Doug talk about how you guys had built, I guess, a company that was using infrastructure that they ended up pulling out from underneath you and making, I guess, the APIs obsolete, and that kind of ruined the business. So building like, I don't know exactly the whole story, but I can resonate how difficult that must have been. So we do have a number of questions here. I'll start with the first one, and then we'll hop into everyone else's questions. So the first one was, what is your opinion on ASIC chips for transcoding?
I think it's really interesting, right? Like ASIC chips for transcoding actually hasn't been around for that long. I'd say until like 5 years ago when we started working on Livepeer was when like ASIC chips was just starting to get good enough that like it's not like indisputably worse than CPU based transcoding. Right? For a long time, CPU transcoding was just way better from a quality perspective. That like people didn't really take like hardware based transcoding seriously. People thought it was kind of a it was not viable. And it took 5 years, prior to when we started Livepeer. Like that's probably how long ASIC transcoding has been around. It took that long to kind of for things to become on par. And now I've been really surprised by just how quickly that sector has grown in the past 5 years. Right, that at this point we're starting to see a few ASIC manufacturers that are actually producing much better quality video streaming, video transcoding outputs, especially considering like the cost and the power saving benefits of these chips. It's really quite amazing. Yeah, so I think it's really exciting. It's got a bright future. I think that as we learned from kind of Bitcoin mining, right, where like when you have like a very specialized piece of computation that with the main objective is to just optimize it as much as possible. Like using ASIC is just a really good approach to solve that problem, and I think video encoding and video transcoding is one of those cases.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see what ASIC chips come out and how they can be maybe incorporated into Livepeer. Papa Bear, you had a question. Would you like to go ahead with your question?
Well, I guess the original question I asked, it kind of ties into it's partially the roadmap of Livepeer, but it then from there goes on to, is there plans to do like on-demand encoding or transcoding? And then if that is the case, are there plans to do anything interesting with the transcoding aside from just the transcoding, like using some AI technologies to identify what's in the scenes that could maybe then be cataloged to add some value to the output, as opposed to just having straight transcoding? And does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. Video on demand transcoding has been something that's actually always been available in the Livepeer network, but just hasn't quite been like productized heavily, right? So for the Livepeer node right now, right, you can actually send, like, the way to transcode is you send it like little video segments, right, and those segments get transcoded piece by piece. That's how you transcode a live stream, right? But for a video on demand file, you can do the same thing, right? You can cut up the video file into small segments and transcode them one by one, and then reconstruct back into a transcoded version of that file. And people have done experiments throughout the years of, like, trying to accelerate that process as much as possible by, for example, using different broadcasters, right? So you can kind of parallelize that transcoding process. The interesting thing about video on demand transcoding is that there is kind of this long tail of video that don't ever get transcoded on the internet. Even if you go to YouTube, right? If you just upload a video onto YouTube, they don't just automatically transcode it. I think you have to like reach a certain threshold for your video to be qualified as transcode worthy, and that's simply just because there's too much video being created on a daily basis for all of that to be transcoded. So I think here, there is a pretty interesting opportunity for the Livepeer network to tap into that, and because Livepeer is so much more affordable in terms of transcoding. As it relates to the roadmap, we're actually starting to work on a video on demand API product, right? So if you go to that's actually been kind of released a couple weeks ago. If you go to livepeer.com/docs, you will see and you go to the API reference, you will see video on demand API endpoints, and we created this. The product team recently created this to help Web3 developers to better create video-based NFTs, because there's now currently a lot of limitations around, like, the size of the video that you can create NFTs on and things like that. So we're trying to create a product that addresses all those pain points. And I think that product will continue to evolve and become more kind of more scalable and try to address more use cases. As it relates to like adding smart, like more like AI based features and things like that, I think that's a really interesting direction to go down. But at the same time, there's just so much low hanging fruit right now in terms of the type of services that Livepeer can create on top of this infrastructure for video on demand transcoding, that I think in the near term we'll probably focus on that to drive adoption on for this use case, right? Like, continue to drive more demand onto the Livepeer network through this, and then once we think we've achieved a certain milestone, I think adding the AI capabilities and more kind of video processing functionalities into the network is definitely like an interesting direction to take.
Okay, cool. So on demand is definitely part of, like, actually, I guess it's already happening that I wasn't even really aware of. I mean, I knew that through, like, Livepeer Inc., you can have it save your live stream, but I didn't really realize that it was just kind of as can you do it just straight up on demand? Is that only through Inc., or did I misunderstand that?
If you're running a Livepeer node, you have to. I think there are some, like, open source projects around where like file.video may be one of them, where there's, like, scripts that allows you to basically do that process of segmenting the video, transcoding them one by one, and then, like, aggregating them back to a file. But then you'd have to, if you really want to support kind of the playback of that, you'd want to like export it into S3 and kind of like put that solution together yourself. But the Livepeer.com product kind of puts that together for developers, so it makes it a little easier to develop. And by the way, all of that, all of those modules that's been created to power that that platform is open source, and anyone can kind of take advantage of that as well.
All right.
I had a follow-up question to that. So I've been looking at setting up a broadcasting website myself, and I'm really excited about Arbitrum because the lower deposit, to get the broadcaster going. So I moved things to L2 early this week, and pretty soon I'm gonna get it up and going. But on-demand video, biggest thing I was stuck on, and I was exploring different approaches. So maybe you could advise, like, what would be the cheapest or more effective, cost-effective way to do it. I noticed the S3 bucket feature, object storage. You could save your transcoded video to object storage, and it would save it in the transcoded resolutions, so that I guess you could build something to reconstruct that, as you were saying, and not have to retranscode it again. Is that the standard, and considered more cost effective than just storing a full resolution file and transcoding it as it's watched each time?
Yeah, for sure. Like, storing the transcoded renditions is probably more economical if the video is viewed frequently, right?
That's what I was thinking.
So that, right. So of course, if there's videos that 90% of the video on YouTube, for example, never gets watched, or gets watched like less than 5 times. Something like that. So that's why they don't transcode it, right? Because the cost of transcoding is actually not worth it. Yeah. So
transcode it on the fly. Sorry to interrupt. Do they transcode it on the fly then? Because did you say yes?
They for YouTube, I think they just don't transcode it. They just
because I've uploaded stuff to YouTube that doesn't have a lot of views, and it's all available in multi-resolution.
Yeah. I definitely know that not all of the videos on YouTube get transcoded. Maybe you have a channel that has enough viewers or aggregate viewers that YouTube considers that your content to be like above a certain bar.
Then the bar is pretty low, because I thought this is like an old channel that I would put some remote control car stuff on that's got a couple hundred views per video at the most. But yeah,
a couple hundred is pretty good. A couple hundred is pretty good, right? Like, most of the videos get less than 5 views.
Yeah,
right?
and I think the duration too, Papa Bear, if you're uploading a 3-minute video, it's not, and it's getting 100 views, it's pretty easy. Whereas I think some people are uploading 3-hour-long soccer matches that get 1 view of their kid's soccer game. That's a lot of resource.
Yeah, and that's where the object storage comes into play, because it's one-time transcoding costs and then maybe a little bit more data storage. But I think overall it gives you better performance. It simplifies your system. Yeah, that sounds right. That was the pattern I saw. I figured the feature was there for good reason. So I'm looking to figure out ways to take what's stored through object storage and make it available to users some way. So I'll dig into that later once I get my broadcaster going again. But
cool.
Yeah, thanks for the information. That's helpful. And I'm really interested in more ways that we can get more broadcasters on. I think the deposit requirement's probably gone down enough to where we could bring more people. The bar's lower for more broadcasters with open source nodes. And
yeah, absolutely. I think that would be really cool to see. In the community, to kind of in the ecosystem, to have kind of like a variety of different types of broadcasters bringing different use cases to the network.
Great segue into I think Chris's question on that topic. Chris, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah. Hi, Eric. How are you? All good.
Hi, Chris.
Hey. Actually, coming on from this point about like how to encourage more diversity in broadcasters on the network. Like maybe also kind of going a bit more generally. So the topic of this chat is about video tech, and like I'm a big believer that Livepeer can be like the future of video tech, like with the decentralized model for incentives and everything. But I guess my question is around what are your thoughts on cultivating an environment where people can feel like developers all over the world can contribute to what's going on in the ecosystem, to kind of make it so that it's kind of as open as it possibly can be, and that there can be people all over the world who don't necessarily even need to have any kind of relationship with Livepeer, but can feel like they can contribute things in a meaningful way. So just like and like that as a way towards getting more diversity in like broadcaster base on the network as well, because we've got a lot of kind of orchestrators on this call, but just in general, like your thoughts on how to cultivate an environment where permissionless contributions are kind of encouraged and are sort of gratefully received and like can actually start to make a difference, and that it's not just kind of ink building things and sort of putting them out to the world, that it's like that we can everyone can feel like we're in this together, building a better video for the future of the internet.
Yeah, really great question, and I think that kind of comes back to the original vision and the mission of the project, right? So to build the world's open video infrastructure. There are a couple of angles that I think about this. One is to think about why. Hello. Oh, sorry. Yeah. One is to think about why broadcasters want to come to Livepeer in the first place, right? Why broadcasters want to leverage the Livepeer network, or to build within the Livepeer ecosystem. And here I think there's just so many use cases that that Livepeer can enable that the core developer team are not thinking about or don't have the context for, right? And I think in order to enable that, we need participation from different types of, not just builders, not just developers, but also creators or different like people with the right context to be in the conversation, right? So this is something that the Livepeer ecosystem team actually has been planning and working on, which is an effort of getting more creators into the Livepeer ecosystem, so that you can have this kind of the right ingredients of people in the ecosystem to kick off this creative this creative cycle, right? Because in order to create something that has a kind of this wide product market fit, it's not just programmers that are needed, right? It's product people, creators, marketing people, all kinds of different people with different backgrounds. So like introducing more introducing Livepeer to more to different people with different backgrounds is kind of this approach that we're taking from a ecosystem growth perspective. And then on top of that, I think another thing that's really really important is to have success examples that we can all point to, that serve as kind of incentives for people to, or light posts for people to be looking at and want to kind of almost come in and recreate that success, right? So I a lot of times I use NBA Top Shots as an example for the Flow ecosystem, and that's what happened within the Flow ecosystem, right? So I guess even before that, CryptoKitties was the first one, from off the back of CryptoKitties, a lot of CryptoKitties actually gave birth to the Flow ecosystem, right? It was through the success of CryptoKitties did people even realize, oh, like we actually cannot just use Ethereum for like minting NFTs for this mass adoption use cases, right? Like the gas price and model doesn't quite, like the underlining technology doesn't quite work for for like large social use cases like that, and where people started to work on other solutions to power these use cases. So I think having those like success examples in the ecosystem is pretty crucial as well.
Very cool. Eric, I know it's almost been about 25, 30 minutes. How much time do you have? I have about 4 more questions, but I want to respect your time. How much time do you have left?
Yeah, I'll take 2 more,
okay.
and then I have to run.
Awesome. Okay, great. So the next question was a question we kind of came up with, which is, what demand is there for different video formats, or different video codecs?
What demand is there for different video codecs and formats? The thing that I think that we've learned over time in building Livepeer and introducing Livepeer to the world is that there's just such a big fragmented world of video, right? Where like there's a reason where all these different video formats and codecs exist. It's because they're all serving different use cases and they all have market. So I mean, I think in the aggregate, I would say each video format and each video codec has demand, right? And the question really for us is kind of narrowing down and finding our own wedge and finding our own niche, so that we can create a huge value, and from there we can grow. We can grow. So currently, in terms of codec and format support, we've very much been in the past focused on H.264 for video codec format and video codec, and for video format, RTMP and kind of HLS out. But with the acquisition of Mist and open sourcing of Mist, I think that opens up a lot of that opens up the design space to a much bigger space, and especially recently we started working on a PR that also allow us to support VP8 and VP9 decoding, and then HEVC encoding. And we're also seeing some hardware vendors starting to offer kind of AV1 encoding soon. Not yet, but hopefully, like in 2022. So I think with those, with those new addition to the network, we can start to see demand for all of those new codecs as well.
Yeah, very cool. I think we had the topic we talked a little bit about earlier before you arrived was also maybe the ability for Livepeer to separate the codecs as they come into different cards based on what the cards can handle, because different, because right now it's really easy because most cards can all do the same, but as chips get more specific and more ability for different codecs, we'd have to maybe separate those streams and be able to identify which cards can do which codecs. So that was kind of a topic we had earlier. And what I'll do is I'll finish off with one last topic, and it's more general and more opinionated. So I'd like to get your opinion, Eric, just on your views on Web3 ecosystem as a whole. What is your definition of Web3, and where do you see the future of it going, and how it disrupting the future?
Man, that is a very open question. Maybe I'll take an angle that's more like Livepeer relevant. I would say, if I just exclude the financial use cases for a second, whether it's ICO or DeFi, and I just focus on kind of the emerging use cases of Web3. I would say the crux to me is that it changes the relationship between a user and an application, so that the user becomes the absolute owners of the data that they have and of the content that they create, right? And this is through the fact that they own their wallets, and all of that, kind of all of that ownership is rooted in the fact that they own this wallet, right? And so any application that follows this paradigm, where the users are actually the owners of the data and the content that they create, and the applications are there simply as a conduit to connect the users together, or connects the users with connect different sets of users. I think of those applications as Web3 applications, right? So an example could be like a completely decentralized video streaming platform. We're starting to see those emerge, or it could be a somewhat centralized, centrally hosted platform like OpenSea, right? Like as much as I think people criticize OpenSea for their practice, at the end of the day, it is a very different platform than, say, like an eBay, right? Where you're just uploading your inventory into eBay, and eBay holds your entire database. Versus OpenSea, if you don't want to use OpenSea, you can delist your NFTs and you go to Rarible, you go to any other NFT platforms. And I think that those dynamics are very significant. And so in terms of so if we think about things in that term, it opens up a lot of interesting opportunities and a lot of interesting questions in terms of what are the other services and what are the other tools that users need in order to function well in this world where they are the owners of their data and their content, right? So for example, people still need a place to process their data. So people still need a place to store their data, or to showcase their ownership of their data, whatever, showcase the content that they own, right? So I think those are the spaces that Livepeer is exploring right now, and just kind of offering more and more tools and services for users so that they can be true owners of their data and content.
Very cool. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come join us at the water cooler chat, do some Q&A, and we just really appreciate you coming and giving your take on the future of video tech and all things Livepeer related. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you very much for having me, and great to be on the call, and I hope to be back soon.
Cheers.
All right, bye.
Thanks so much. What we'll do now is we will continue on with the rest of the water cooler chat. What did people think about Eric coming and joining us? I think it was pretty good.
Good. It was good. Eric is always really succinct, so that was great.
Great. Okay. Let's continue on with the rest of our chat here. I think overall Eric is a smart guy, and I think he's got a lot to share. And I think we asked some good questions. I had more questions for him, obviously. I think we got through everyone else's questions, though, right? I didn't miss anyone. Anyone that had a question at the beginning got to ask it. So what I'll do now is let's move on to a couple more topics. Let's see. We got Eliteproxy. Is Elite with us? Yes. You talked a little bit about stream volumes and some things. Do you want to just elaborate on your question from this morning? I guess this morning here, but not meant for everyone else.
Yeah, since we moved to layer 2, I have a couple theories about stream volume and how things have been. I remember on layer 1 when gas price would get really high, we would get a lot of streams, 10 plus at the time, and things would be well. And sometimes it'd go on for a while, and we actually got 1 tickets like a couple days apart, which is really cool. But obviously, I think on the layer 2 with the gas price, or if I'm understanding this correctly, I think what's going on maybe is that the broadcasters have more free reign to choose the fastest orchestrator because the gas price being low. Maybe, I don't know if there's a transaction on their part that involves switching the stream, but that's my understanding of maybe some of the dynamics. So now we're dealing with a more, I think, even field, and things have spread out, and it's probably better for the network that it worked that way. But since you could call it more competitive, I guess, I've been keeping a close eye on things. I do see a lot of these quick spikes, even on a regular basis. Sometimes we'll hit both nodes at once, just a quick little spike. And it seems like it's just broadcasters checking me out to see how fast I can transcode and deciding, well, 200 milliseconds is enough, and just moving on to the next guy. So I think that's a theory. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that, or if they've seen anything, their volumes go down or up. I'm sure a mix of, based off where you're at. But one of the ideas I had for that was we've got an RTX 5000, and we don't use it because it apparently is a little bit slow. But I have been looking at a lot of the stream renditions coming in, and some of them that are pretty much all of them, I'd say, that are multi-rendition, 3 or 4 or more. Those, we normally don't get those streams. They'll come in for a second and then they'll go away, and that's a lot of spikes that we're seeing. So I was thinking it would be neat if there was a feature. We had an issue created, I think Papa Bear was talking about earlier, where streams hit the card that's designed to handle, I would presume the RTX 5000 could maybe handle those streams and get those jobs easier than 50, for example. It's just theories I had around that and trying to be competitive.
Are you talking about these spikes that go from like 5 to like 50 or something like that?
Not quite. I mean, I actually just had one come and hit my node from 5 up to like 14 and then drop back down. Not quite those, because those look like test streams, and I can see the time that they come in. It's any given moment. It's just one little spike. We go from 4 streams to 5 streams, and then back to 4, and it will have this sometimes happen every other minute. Like, it's really frequent. You go back and look at the day, and it's just like a porcupine, of little streams coming in and deciding, oh, not you, move on to the next guy. That's what I think they are, but I don't know. Like, I would assume it's sending a little test to see who's the fastest out of them.
I've seen similar stuff when I've run my node with 2 RTX 5000s as well. But is that the extent of like the workstation card differences that you've seen, Livepeer? Or I'm just curious because
I haven't seen any particular.
Curious.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't actually put the 5000 into operation in a while. So this is actually my experience on the 1050s, and whereas almost all of our streams are the 480 or maybe 2 renditions, and we might get one with 3, but it's pretty rare. I was hoping to catch some higher value streams with the 5000, but it seems like if we hit the 5000 with a 480 stream, maybe somebody who has a 1050 like what I'm running now would run faster.
Interesting.
That's a theory. I don't know if it's a true theory, but these little 1050s, I don't think they can handle those heavy streams. I think Titan made a comment one day, like, it seems like a lot of nodes will just cripple when you get hit with these multi-rendition streams. And I started looking at closer, and I noticed we don't get a lot of them. I mean, they come in, but we don't get to keep them for very long.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, thanks for going into that.
I don't think it. Sorry. I don't think it matters. Obviously to some extent, how fast you can get the stuff transcoded, as long as you get it back within the times that are acceptable, which pretty much all cards can do. So I mean, it's usually it's a bandwidth thing, I think, than a transcoding. issue.
That's a good theory too. Because the node we're running, he's got some media converter in the middle of it. It's probably slowing things down. I've been trying to get that fixed for months. Maybe that's what's going on, but
that's I mean, at least that's my experience and my understanding of how the network works. I mean, like, it doesn't have to be like it's like the absolute fastest, as long as it's within, you know, what's considered an acceptable time or sub real time. And so yeah, I don't think it's like, oh, you know what, we're gonna go find someone who's like just a couple milliseconds faster. I mean, as long as you're, again, within that
okay.
acceptable range, I mean, I don't think that's what's causing the streams to drop out. I mean, there's clearly something going on.
From my,
but,
And I guess it just depends on the day. I mean,
does your porcupine look like the video chat image I sent? That's what my porcupines look like. Is that what yours look like?
yeah, let me pull that up.
I just got one of those a few minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I just got one of those too, so that's not exactly what I was referring to, but
No,
just about. I mean, almost like
you'll
spikes.
just like one little spike. Yeah.
Yeah, the little
I think we all
spikes.
get those.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's
The
pretty
streams will
common.
come in, and it depends on the day, I guess. But I do. It seems like things are more competitive in terms of. I know a broadcaster can pick which one's the fastest. At some point, it does that much. I don't know if anyone can that with gas prices lower, broadcasters are probably a little more picky. If that, I don't know if that plays into the way that they choose.
Really, for right now, pretty much everything's coming from Livepeer. So I don't think they've changed their parameters on what they're, what they require or what they're looking for. But as far as like just seeing that little spike up, I mean, I get those on every node I have, and they're running different cards in different ones with different some are
these are those days when like I'm running 0 to 1 stream and 2 streams, and well, little spike here, little spike there, just a lot of spikes. When you look at it through the whole day, it's, I don't know, maybe I can find a good example, but it's been a lot better. So I think it's just probably just been some slow days, and that's all. Nothing really to
would like to know what those are.
On.
Like, is that I mean I get those too. I've just always kind of assumed that that's just part of the way Livepeer works for whatever reason. But I mean, I've seen other people post up their their graphs, and it seems fairly common to see them. They're probably less noticeable if someone has a lot of streams going. Just see that little bump. But when you don't have a lot of streams on your node, then they're like they look more dramatic. So they kind of stick out more. But
that's
from what I've seen,
basically.
like from a lot of just looking through other people's posts that post up their graphs. I mean, I see a lot of those, and so I think that's fairly normal. Again, I don't know what's causing it or what the reason is for it, but I don't think it's anything specific to you. If that makes you feel any better.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just probably just randomness when you don't have many streams that you can see it. But I do remember when gas prices were high and we had like lots of streams. I know there was a bug in Livepeer, one of the releases, the last 2 before we moved over, and it would just, we had like memory leaks and it was just flopping over. But the gas price was so high we could start it back up and go straight back to 20 streams, and we weren't even being punished at all for crashing because it seemed the gas price was so high. I think that was encouraging a lot of that type of behavior. But now that the gas price is so low, it seems like the broadcasts are spread out a lot more. One theory I have, but
I do feel that from my experience, if you have your transcoding score, so if your score is above 2, so meaning you're doing it twice as fast, you're pretty much all broadcasters will hold that stream. It's only when you start falling below 2 it seems to kick you off. So if your transcoding score is above 2, real time, like return, I should say return. So not just locally, but also return. So basically on the test streams, if you can give back a stream in under 1 second after you receive a 2-second segment, you typically will keep those streams, from my experience. Anything beyond that is just it's not necessary. So it really just comes down to bandwidth and the speed of your GPU.
Sounds good.
Speaking of just spikes, and I know those are different spikes. What's going on the East Coast right now? Anyone noticing that I keep going to max streams and then it drops right back down? 2 in a row.
Yeah, it's happened the second time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Something wacky is going on.
I was just looking because we were talking about it. And I was like, oh wow, it's got some big bunny ears there.
Yeah, the first one was close enough to 12 after to think it was straight, and the second one, it's like half hour through. But I had on that. I mean, having like a feature, where you could, maybe there's some value in it when you have mismatched cards or something. Load balancing. That's one question I had a little bit. You could set max sessions per GPU. I think we've talked about that before. Or being able to say these renditions will go to this card and those renditions of that card. I don't know if there's any advantage in building something like that as a feature.
Okay. Cool. I'm just going to move on a little bit here. I have a question that I was going to jump into myself. We lost a few people, but that's okay. I wanted to quickly talk about the content competition. Now, I know that some people are interested in it, some people are not. I wanted to get some feedback. Did anyone look at the link I sent out, maybe read through it, and then have any feedback on it?
I mean, I remember reading it when you first posted it, but
yeah, sorry, I was just coming off mute. I think it's a really nice idea. I think, like, if I was coming to contribute to something, I'd probably want to know a bit more about like how the entries will be judged. Because without a bit more detail on that, it can kind of, like, coming from the outside and thinking I can contribute something here, like, you don't know whether there's just someone who's just like going to be a single person making the decisions about who wins the prizes. So I don't know if there's any way of like somehow decentralizing, like having a judging panel and having some just a little bit more information on like how the judging will be done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. That's good feedback. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously this is just the first draft of it, and the judging criteria is just, and the judges themselves haven't been publicly listed or anything, right? And how they would vote and all these kind of things, like, would that be something public? Would it be private? I was just going to go with more of a private thing, just because it makes it simpler for the first test run of this idea. Just because I don't know if running a contest is even like worth it. Like, I don't know if there's actually a benefit to doing this, right? Like, I took the idea from another protocol, DYDX. They ran a content competition, and I liked the idea, so I kind of just built a draft around it. But I after putting it forward to DOB, he was asking some good questions, like, what is the outcome of a competition? What are we expecting? What are we hoping for, right? And one of his criticisms was like, are we looking for lots of different tutorials that are maybe of less quality because they are put into a competition, rather than just using that money to pay a professional for a high quality version and just having the one version, right? Like, just question. Obviously, he's not criticizing; he's just throwing out questions. And so, the question behind the competition is, do we need to have this type of competition where we have multiple people putting out the same content, And if we did use this model of a competition, could this competition be used for different avenues that could see success? Like maybe a competition for someone who can build a little transcoding app, or a competition who can build something, or another content competition, like it, or is this just not really speak to the Livepeer ecosystem?
Yeah, I'll give a meta response to that. Like for me, collaboration and competition are kind of like they're sort of, I don't want to say they're competing, but they're kind of, for me, they're different. Like when I did some competitive sport in my life, and it was all about being better than and beating the other person. And that's kind of like it creates some energy in you to kind of want to be the best and to win, but that can also be wasteful because the person that you're competing against, they're on your, they're doing the same thing as you. And something that's better in general for humanity maybe is if you are collaborating with them. And there's a lot about what the Livepeer ecosystem is kind of built around, is this concept of collaboration and community and people working together. I mean, there is, sometimes people talk about competing for work, transcoding work. But I think I've said it in the past that I think Papa Bear said something about that we're all in competition together. And I made the point that I don't feel like I'm competing with Papa Bear. I feel like I'm on the same team as him. So I think there is it's an interesting dynamic to start introducing this concept of competition in a world which is in an ecosystem like the Ethereum ecosystem is very collaborative and very sort of mutually supportive. And Livepeer, I think, also kind of is one of those ecosystems that's about people helping each other and aligning our incentives so that if we all work on what we enjoy working on, but we do it together, then actually that can bind us and that can be stronger than if we try to kind of compete with other protocols or other projects. Like that said, I don't think there's no space for competition, but I do think it's something that needs to be kind of treated carefully in a world where what we're actually, like I feel like we're trying to do as an ecosystem is to collaborate and to work together, like things like this where we're coming together and new people are coming in like John, and we're all trying to help John get his setup working so that we can kind of be stronger together. When you introduce competition into it, you end up kind of a little bit sort of builds ego, and it kind of it singles out one individual over others, which can have a positive effect in the short term, but maybe in the long run starts to make it look like it's kind of a dog eat dog kind of an ecosystem. And I don't know if that's necessarily what we want to kind of be pushing towards.
That's a really good point. Maybe it needs to be renamed from, or scrapped entirely, but maybe the idea is, not a content competition, but a content collaboration, right?
I mean, that's nice. It instantly makes me think about maybe the prize fund. Maybe people could apply to become part of a DAO where everyone's got an equal share, and maybe there are some kind of minimum viable entry requirements, but if you kind of pass those, then you get to become part of a DAO, and maybe that DAO ends up with 20 people in it who all want to kind of decide work together and collaborate, and in collaborating, those 20 people have like a 1/20th share of the voting power about how that money gets spent. And even if it doesn't kind of instantly get kind of decided and shared out, then the money can sit there and to form some sort of like binding force between those 20 individuals, that if those 20 individuals can't kind of collaborate and work effectively together, and at least 11 of them can't come together and sort of and agree how things should work, then that money is effectively burnt. So it's kind of you bind these humans together, and you put in a kind of a bounty, if you like, of whatever the prize fund might be, and kind of just sit back and see what unfolds, which in some ways is kind of like what the original DAO concept was, and in some ways in kind of Ethereum ecosystem, like a lot of the big ideas that people talked about that this DAO could form, even though the DAO got hacked and the money got drained, like still those ideas are being worked on because they're out in the open now. So something, and maybe this is something to kind of collaborate on with Drake and Meredith around like how to cultivate an environment for open collaboration around Livepeer when it comes to content, like educational content to help people work out how to stake on layer 2, but to start to introduce some concepts around like decentralized autonomous organizations to kind of, don't think of them as being like analogous to countries, like many people think. They see DAOs and they see big organizations creating big DAOs, and it's like just creating the new kind of crypto institution, and grand ideas about like one DAO to rule them all. Like there's another perspective on how DAOs could work, which is you form them from the grassroots upwards, and you kind of start by forming small teams together around small ideas, and like test by contributing some capital to those kind of on-chain constructs, to give a financial incentive for those humans who are part of the DAO to come together and say, right, well, like we can't really just kind of take all the money and divide it amongst ourselves equally without building anything useful for the Livepeer ecosystem. This DAO was supposed to be about content to educate, like Livepeer Academy content, specifically around getting staking moving and kind of unlocking the wheels that have been sort of rusted together all this time while mainnet gas fees have been so high. Now we're on Arbitrum, like hopefully things will start to move and stake will start kind of allocating more effectively, and the whole kind of delegated stake concept can actually start to kind of take hold a little bit more. But how can we catalyze that by providing clear and concise and useful bits of content, and who knows, maybe a group of people, instead of like fighting against each other to win top prize, they could come together and say and come up with a 2-minute video that takes them 3 days, and everyone looks at it and agrees like that's absolutely brilliant, that's exactly what we need, and it gets 1 million views on wherever it gets published, and then there's no argument that like, yes, let's collectively vote that the 3 people maybe that made that video together, they should get the whole prize. So I think starting off as a kind of a relatively centralized sort of opaque judging system, it may struggle to get the kind of to attract the energy that you might wish to attract. But starting it out as kind of, maybe don't call it a DAO, but maybe not make it a DAO, but just some sort of thing that is where there's a fully auditable and fully transparent governance mechanism to decide who votes, how the money gets split up. You also don't necessarily need to be so prescriptive early on about how big the prizes are and this is the prize for first place, this is the prize for second place. You can just allocate a chunk of capital and you can even be part of the decision-making process yourself, Titan, and elect or invite or kind of open yourself up to others to come and say, yeah, I want to be part of deciding, how this money gets spent, and put a loose framework around it, but make sure it's all completely open and completely transparent. The decision-making process, the communication about deciding how the money gets split up, and even encourage open communication and collaboration around how content gets made, and
so what you're saying,
inspire people to.
So what you're saying is a competition.
Go on.
So what you're saying is a competition might not be the best choice.
I mean, I don't want to say that, Titan, because this was your concept, and I don't want to kind of co-opt it into what I think is right. I'm just trying to give you an alternative perspective, like a spin it 180, to give you flip your perspective as a way to encourage and provoke creativity between us and between all of us on this call. So I think it's your concept.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the feedback. Does anyone else have any comments on the content competition idea?
I was just looking it over. I like the topic. I think staking and learning how to stake is important. And one other thing I think that might be even a bigger thing to talk about, or a really important thing, is just around bringing new broadcasters on. I talk about it a lot, but it seems like we have, I guess, 80 something orchestrators now, and nobody's really filling up any GPUs. And that'll definitely help diversify once the stake spreads out. An important problem to address. And one of the ways we could do that is, I've thought about, I know there was somebody had a tool on the mainnet where you could basically know how many delegators a certain orchestrator had. If there was some way to still get that data point from the graph, or however that works, you could build
I'll post a link to
that would be so interesting to code to. Okay, that would be useful. I mean, I remember looking at the old link, and it looks like it's to the old mainnet. Maybe it doesn't reflect the new L2 data. But if we had a tool like that, it would make it really easy, because, for instance, I got a delegator after cutting my fee cut to 50%. And he's practically, as far as I know, the only delegator that I have. And if you look at it, he's doing pretty good, making 50% of my earnings, right? But other delegators other orchestrators that have thousands and thousands of LPT, and they've got 5 or 6 or 7 delegators involved. It's a delegator, a potential delegator, to understand what their real potential earnings are. Based, staking with somebody who's got a few hundred, or maybe only 1 or 2 delegators, versus somebody that has 10 or 20 or 100.
I'll hop in here, because what I hear you saying is, staking is great, but we should focus on delegators. I think the idea behind the competition was the idea of competitions in general, because staking is just one competition. There could be a second competition on getting broadcasters, a third competition on creating a tool for monitoring delegators, and a fourth competition on building tutorials for broadcasters, right? I think what I'm this is just the first. The topic is not important. It's whether competitions are something I want to utilize as a tool, right? you just switch the staking to delegating or broadcasting.
Right.
So I'm really curious about the idea of pursuing a competition model within Livepeer.
Yeah. If I can chime in here, I think to rewind to what Chris is saying is a pretty cool and special idea and a perspective that I didn't have, but I think it could work. And I like the track it was going down to promote the collaboration. I mean, being in the Web3 space, I think more than anything, that just brings karma that our community is focused on the right direction, which is collaborating and creating content in the best method that we can. And I think when you were talking to DLB Titan, and he brought up the point of like, well, like what is the objective with this? And if it's people creating a lot of content in the short term just to earn a prize, and maybe the motives aren't right there in a competition sense. And I think if we can bring it to a collaboration de facto, and maybe that, a Livepeer content DAO, or whatever we potentially think about it as, it could really work. And having the incentive, be distributed amongst the members of the DAO, that structure could pencil. I think what it really would boil down to is if we can get enough participation. Like if we can have enough people involved and committed to being involved in said DAO or sub DAO or whatever it might be landed on. That's my initial thought, is leaning away from the competition to promote the correct motives in creating content that will be valuable and we all vote on, that it looks professional and follows the brand that we want the Livepeer community to display publicly. And then if 3 people amongst that group are the ones who created the video, and we all vote that they should be allocated, a portion of the prize pool for doing the work, I think it's fair on everybody's end and still gets the same incentive across, that if you do work to help create content, you will get rewarded, and the community or DAO or whatever decides on what is a fair price for the work that you've done. Again, it's all nice in theory and it would have to pencil out good, and there'd have to be some project management. But I like the idea and the way you were thinking, Chris.
Right, and I think there's something about not trying to make this thing too monolithic. Like if you make something big and it takes time and people contribute something, and then they start to get expectations that they should get something out of this thing, and then they keep contributing, and they've contributed a lot already and they keep contributing more, and then in the end the amount they get out of it isn't what they expect based on their kind of participation in this thing, then that can go bad. So it's about, I think, making it very manageable, small, bite-sized chunks whenever you are kind of launching this kind of thing. But it's also something that it takes some getting used to. It's not the modus operandi that many people are kind of used to working in, and it gets some funky emotions going working inside DAOs. Not for the faint-hearted, but it also can create, very, very interesting things. I mean, in some ways, like Livepeer is forming into a DAO. It's kind of, we are all sort of participating in this thing. It's not kind of formally a DAO, and it's not using a DAO framework, but it is kind of decentralized. It is kind of autonomous. We're all here now talking based on someone's inspiration, and we're kind of somehow organizing stuff. So in some ways, kind of Livepeer is a DAO, but it's just whether there are kind of this opportunity for, as you say, creating some sort of sub-DAO construct for applying pressure on certain areas that collectively we feel need some attention.
Yeah, maybe that's something we could use our existing voting framework towards. Like if if you had did more polls, they're pretty cheap to run. You could we produce something like a couple different pieces of content, and there could be where people vote, like something like that. I don't know if that's one way.
I think that's a really great idea. The Livepeer governance mechanism. I mean, it provides for decentralized decision making process. So it's one of those things that it kind of came into existence just before the time when mainnet gas went crazy, and it kind of became something that was only really used for sort of big ideas and big network upgrades. But there's definitely scope for starting to use that framework for kind of smaller decisions.
But what do you mean by that specifically? Because like a competition has votes, but if we don't go towards a competition, then why would we vote? Because that's right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to decentralize. I think just in the spirit of, I'm actually pretty good at the term DAO, so just in the spirit of decentralized, it seems like bringing more people's opinions together to decide a winner, so to speak, is more in the spirit of where we were headed with the DAO. But I'm not too familiar with how to set up DAO and so forth.
So here's a question that I propose, and then maybe you guys can come up with an answer. We have people that want to delegate Livepeer, who don't know anything about crypto. Okay, so imagine you have someone who understands video tech. They understand that this transcoding thing is going to be big because they see how disruptive it is. And they're like, wow, I really want to invest in that technology. But they don't know anything about Ethereum. They don't know anything about cryptos. They have no idea that an Ethereum wallet is a string of 42 characters, and that you can also send these things called tokens that are ERC20 tokens to them. Like these people, they don't know anything, but they want to get in on Livepeer. So how do we build tutorials for them, and provide value for them to retail investors to come in and choose orchestrators, and not just have NightNode make one standard video that doesn't encompass most people's questions. Like, man, I get questions all the time. Well, how do I do it on Coinbase wallet? Well, how do I do it on this bridge? Well, how do I? And I'm like, well, there's just too many avenues, right? So the idea was to have more people contributing to the education to retail investors. And once we get that framework of how we do that, then you can do that with other topics, right? Then you can do that with broadcasters. Then you can do that with node operators. Then you can do that with all types of different problems. But the framework for getting out this education is what I'm trying to solve, and that's what we've been talking about today. And that's why I came up with the idea of a competition. But from a really good feedback today, which I really appreciate, is that a competition might not be conducive to the Livepeer ecosystem. That creates competition, in which case people feel it could have actually some big backlashes and negative side effects, which I want to avoid. So if anyone thinks of a very concise idea on how we could go about that, I'd be very ears wide open.
Yeah, I think Titan, you like what you just said is exactly right. Like there has to be more education and tutorials for the variety of instances new retail investors might come across, and they need clear and concise answers. And if we created this community of people already involved in the Livepeer ecosystem who want to be involved with content creation, I think we could have like an objectives board or just a running list of like, okay, we need a tutorial on how a new retail investor might stake if they're using Coinbase wallet. And how does that look on desktop? How does that look on mobile? maybe that's a 11-minute video. And if there's someone involved in our like content group, content sub DAO, whatever, who's like, yeah, I can create that tutorial. I'm really good at editing, etc. I'm comfortable making it. I think we could all vote on like, okay, let's follow these brain guidelines. Let's start the video in the same way. Let's make sure it matches how we want Livepeer to look on an official tutorial that's coming out of this sub DAO. Then we can get it up on a potential, Livepeer YouTube channel, or we can make a subcategory to where it's like, content tutorials, or we could get this all really organized and consistent, and the cadence is correct, and we could essentially go through what we thought were the most important tutorials to create right away. The things you mentioned.
I agree with you on some things. The one thing though that I would disagree on is like the consistency of like the media, like the branding and stuff. Like I know that when I built my tutorials, people would delegate to me not because of the tutorial, but because they would ask me questions and I would give them one-on-one feedback. And people got to communicate directly with an orchestrator who would help them with their specific problems. And that's how I ended up with the amount of delegators that I have, is because I gave people one-on-one time because they felt comfortable asking me the question. The problem with having a top-down, DAO or Inc. one video to rule them all, I think, or however you want to look at it, is like it's less personal, right? So I was trying to empower node operators to have that communication with their delegators, because I think that is actually really important, that a lot of node operators might not realize they can focus on, right? For people who are in here that have stake, like delegators sometimes reach out and they will express concerns, they will ask questions, and when you have that one-on-one dialogue, it's amazing how loyal they become, right? And so what I was trying to do is maybe encourage people to create their own content, to start that dialogue, that personal dialogue. So but again, these are all just ideas. I'm not here to criticize. I'm here to receive criticisms for my ideas. So I appreciate everyone giving their feedback. But basically, what I'm hearing is, a competition might not be conducive to collaboration within Livepeer. It might fractionalize or create negative consequences by running a competition within Livepeer. But maybe there's a better structure for getting this content out. Those are just my ideas. I don't know, Drake, if you wanted to finish up your thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah, and I see your point there as well. Like, and I think there's validity to both thought processes, and the basis is like I do believe you're very correct, and there needs to be more forms of education for people who want to learn. And whatever we think the best structure to accomplish that goal going forward, like I think we're in the right direction, and I think this conversation is super informative for me. And I'm glad we're able to sit here and discuss this. So I think it's something to put some more thought into, especially on my end. And when we do come to an answer on whatever that structure may be, I think the purpose of it is super beneficial and it's needed. So I'll leave it at that.
Cool. Any last comments before we sign off? We've been at this for 2 hours. Any last comments, questions, or things we want to speak about before we close off about the meeting? I just called it a meeting. This is supposed to be a water cooler chat. Yeah, any last comments? Cool. All right. Well, what we'll do is we'll call it there. Again, I appreciate you, everyone coming to this weekly water cooler chat. It's because of you guys that this has been successful, and that this has been so wonderful to host. And I appreciate everyone coming. I will remind everyone that John is a new orchestrator, and if we can help him get him up and running, I would be really excited to have a new member in our cult. I mean, our community, where we can learn, grow, and change the world. So thank you guys for coming, and we will hopefully see you all next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great week.
All right, girls.
Thanks. Bye.